Welcome to another installment of the Impactful Scholarship Series. I'm Helene Starks, the Academic Research Coach for the Division of General Internal Medicine. And my talk today is to give you another set of tools that can help you translate your observations and hunches into questions and answers that you can then turn into scholarship. So we've been talking a lot about authenticity, and today's exercise will help you delve more deeply into that for helping you understand sort of what is your portfolio of ideas that you're thinking about, and why are they particular of interest to you now? What motivates you to be interested in these topics? And what is the purpose of scholarship for you? Why would you want to pursue doing these activities in the name of scholarship? And if you do, who, in addition to you, is interested in your work? Who shares your interests and in your passions? So in the next half hour or so, I hope to help you transform your passions into impactful project ideas by teaching you about a tool that's called affinity mapping, speed writing and affinity mapping, that helps you sort of download all the ideas that you have in your head and organize them into potentially a portfolio of projects or interests that you could decide to pursue. And part of the process for connecting these ideas to passions is to look behind them and kind of see what values do they represent for you and why do they have significance for you and key stakeholders. So before we get started, I'm going to ask you to get some supplies. So if you don't have them to hand, then you can pause the video for just a second until you get them. It's very useful to have a stack of Post-it notes are ideal, but just small pieces of paper that you can write on are fine. We're going to be doing a generative exercise where I'm going to ask you to write as fast as you can for as many ideas as possible. And then after that, you start to organize them for the affinity mapping piece. And sticky notes are great for that because then you can actually put a chain of ideas together to kind of form a group of ideas that you could then think about more. We're going to do this twice. The first time around, we're going to ask you to think about this from your own perspective. So start with where you're at right now. And then the second round we're going to do where I'm going to ask you to think about one of your key stakeholders and put yourselves in their shoes and try and do this exercise again to kind of understand what's at stake for them and where you may have potential alignments. And then we'll finish with having you do a summary so that you have some ideas for next steps and how you might take those ideas further. So the idea about speed writing and affinity mapping is that you start with a timed write with a prompt question, and you spend as much time writing as fast as you possibly can to get as many ideas down on little pieces of paper as possible. After you've spent the first round doing that generative piece, the second round is to sort them into groups and sort of look for themes. Sometimes what emerges at this point is the same project with multiple different facets to it. Sometimes what happens is you find there's actually 2 or 3 different projects that all may fit under a larger kind of topical umbrella, but within that there's discrete steps that could be function as independent projects. Both of those are very common. And the reason why I'm teaching you these two is that in essence, when you are trying to be in creative mode, you have these different persona who have different roles at different times. So in the beginning part, it's this designer part of you that needs to kind of let go of all the big ideas and whiteboard them, or sometimes they call that spitballing. So the idea is you really just get them all out on the table in front of you, and that's the time test is very helpful because it stops you from analysis too soon. That is the second step. So once you've got a whole plate full of ideas in front of you, then you can go into analysis, but you want to let the generative process be free-flowing without too much critique or stopping to decide what it means. Step 2 is when you then take all your sticky notes and you group them together. When I'll be asking you to take a look after you've done that to sort of pick one. So choose some rank orders, and you may just do a gut check to see which of these is most appealing to me. Don't think too hard about that either, just go with something. Or if you have been thinking about this for some time, pick one that you'd like to push it further and kind of go a little deeper with it. The third role here is your reviewer. And after you've done this first 2 steps where you've got the beginnings of some order, and starting to see some themes, you step back and you put on your reviewer hat, and that's when you're really trying to synthesize what's going on here, what are take-home messages, and what kind of our next steps. And we're going to practice all of those. But before we start, let me just walk you through the process. So I'm going to start by giving you a writing prompt in just a minute here. The idea is I will give you about 2 minutes, and I'll be your timer for today. And I want you to generate as many ideas as you possibly can, almost like running and skipping and just go, 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 go. Don't worry if you start to duplicate, that's fine. And if you start to lose steam or you've sort of petered out and your time's not up, go back to the prompt question and ask yourself the question again. How could I approach this a little differently, maybe from a slightly different angle? And then if you're writing and you kind of run out, just say, well, what else? What else? What else? And just keep pushing to generate. So I'll just give you a quick example. My field is in palliative care and patient-centered communication. And when I started asking myself, what do I care about? This is kind of a subset of the list of things. So this would be my 2-minute speed write, or maybe a 30-second speed write. And then the next step was for me to take my little stickies and kind of organize them to see where I have themes. You see some things kind of cluster together, sometimes they don't. But for then the purposes of this exercise, I want to pick one central one that kind of comes to the fore. So it may encompass all these other things, or just maybe something that I want to write about. So get your gear ready. We're going to get started. And this is your first prompt question, and I'm going to be the timekeeper for you. In your work life, what topics or ideas or areas of inquiry ignite your passions or get you thinking, I'd like to learn more about that? So I'm going to turn on the timer, turn off my video and the mic, and so you have about 10 seconds more and finish your thought. And if you're not quite finished, just put this on pause and then finish out your thoughts. And we'll move on to the next part. So now hopefully you have a pile of good ideas in front of you. And the next step then is to start to put them together. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes. And first I want you to group like with like, or create affinity maps however they make sense to you. And then take a look at those and pick one that you want to use for the next round of things. So go ahead and get started, and you've got 2 more minutes. So again, about 10 more seconds. Finish whatever you're doing. If not, just pause. And making your pick for the topic that you want to continue exploring. I'm going to ask you to then do another speed write. So with this idea in mind, the next piece is to explore your own motivations and values, also some assumptions about why you think you know what you know. So for example, my belief is that if we are able to communicate with patients and families more effectively, we will reduce their anxiety, and that'll make it easier for everyone to cope. So I could explore for myself why it is I think that way, and kind of what prior experiences have led me to believe that, either what research I've read that makes me think that way, or my own experience, working with patients and families. So just an example of how these motivations tap in and why I think they're important and where I think the knowledge comes from. So part of the rationale for doing all of this is it helps us understand how we know our problem and what we know and take for granted as the facts behind it. So let's just start and make this simple. First, I want you to spend about a minute just answering the question, why are you interested in this topic? What makes it get you excited? Why are you passionate about it? And why is it important for you to work on this and sort of turn this into scholarship? How would learning more about it advance your own well-being or interests and sort of deepen your commitment to this area of scholarship? So I'm going to give you another 2 minutes. And just free write on either one or both of those questions, or what makes you passionate about this topic. So you should be wrapping up with that. And the next step then is to once again kind of organize your motivations into categories and start to think, well, what are there some that are about career advancement? Are there some about clinical knowledge that you're just curious about a question? Is there something about you would love to teach residents something new and you need to learn how to get that done or start working on a curriculum? So spend another couple minutes putting them together and in rank order. And then after that, we're going to ask you to kind of reflect on sort of what's your take home at this point. So just spend the next 2 minutes just thinking about how do your motivations cluster, and what are they from sort of the most to the least, if such a rank order is possible. So wrap that up or put this on pause, and we'll go to kind of the last step of this process, which is sort of the stepping back and taking a look at your free writes. First, it's sort of the whole range of things that you picked, and then your motivations. And now kind of put those two things together and think about all your passions and kind of your motivations. Specifically, you spent time with one of them, but you may take a step back and kind of look at those motivations and see how they apply to all of the ideas that you've generated. And this is the beginning then of you starting to connect very explicitly these motivations to ideas, and then that can help you prioritize what you want to do next. So just maybe get out another piece of paper to write a memo, or do this on your computer, however this works for you. Take another 2 minutes and just jot down kind of what just happened for you. What did you learn? If you're looking at motivations and different projects, the one that you're prioritizing, why is it that you want to do that one next? What is it that it will accomplish for you if you prioritize that first? So wrapping that part up, or putting this on pause to finish. That is kind of our first round. And now we're going to switch gears and do this again. Only this time I'm going to ask you to try and answer some of these questions from the perspective of a stakeholder that you have, or a set of stakeholders that you have in mind who might share your interests. So this is the time to get a different color pen if you have one, or different color sticky notes. That's another way to do this sometimes. It just helps that later when you're stepping back and looking at the whole thing, if you can distinguish what are your ideas from what you think your stakeholders are going to be doing. So we're going to start with a new prompt question. And the first one is to be very generative about thinking who else may be affected by your project idea or whatever it is you're interested in. So think of all the people who are affected by or have a stake in the process or the outcomes that are related to your topic. And I want basically one name or a person's role. So it could be patient, family, nurses, hospitalist colleagues, whatever, right? You can just name it that way, or you can think about actual people who might be collaborators with you, either way or both, and try and generate as many names as you can in 2 minutes. Go. So now hopefully you have a lot of different stakeholders that you have in front of you, and I'm going to then give you another minute to just organize them. And maybe there are affinities of like a type of people or groups of people that already work together or something like that. So first I'm going to ask you to put them in groups, and then I want you to pick one, because I'm going to ask you to kind of step into their shoes or try to impersonate them or imagine what they would say if you ask them the next prompt question. So I'm just going to give you a quick minute and just go ahead and organize yourself. So again, if you need a little bit more time, just hit the pause button. But what I want you to do now is pick that one person or one group of people who you can imagine kind of talking in your mind. And what do you think they have why do you think they have an interest in this topic? What is it that if you went to them and pitched this idea and said, hey, what do you think? What do you think they would say back to you? What's at stake for them? Why might they get on your team if you invited them to be a part of that? So I'm going to give you another 2 minutes. If you run out of ideas for a particular stakeholder, shift gears and try to write about somebody else, and just expand this. The idea is to start to look for possible alignments and collaborations, but really it's what's at stake from their point of view. So finish up again and give yourself a little more time if you need it. For this last part, we're going to do kind of the mapping, sorting, and reflecting kind of all together. So you may want to just write this down, move your things around, kind of decide what themes and motivations you look like you've identified for them. Try to think about from their perspective, you know, what does the issue look like, and how does what you're interested in sort of advance their cause as well as your own? And then maybe just summarize 3 reasons why this would be something that would be of interest to them. And this starts to help you think about purpose and audience, and how ultimately translating your ideas into not only something that is your passion, but also can align with others, is one of the keys to success. So take another couple of minutes here and just take a look at what you've just done from your stakeholders' view, and then maybe think about how it relates to what you did for your own view, and see if you're finding places of alignment. So take another 2 minutes. So now hopefully you've gotten a first pass understanding of kind of your own set of passions and what drives you. We're almost done here. The last step is to summarize this into something that you can kind of synthesize for yourself and your take-home messages. So I'm going to just give you one last time to now step back, and now is when you're really going to put on your reviewer hat, where you're going to pull back, you're going to take a look at everything you've just done. And I want you to take a minute or two and just try to figure out what would be a goal for a project that you are ready to do next. Maybe you ask yourself, did you just look at maybe a whole portfolio of projects? Sometimes people do this with me and they generate, a whole year's worth or 2 years or 5 years worth of ideas. Take a look at those. Is there something that should happen next? If you had to do a whole series of things, is there either because it's the right time, or you have the right collaborators, or you're motivated by the same things, and this is a nice place to start and start working together, maybe low stakes, so you have a way to build trust in a team? These are the sorts of things that people think about when they're in the beginning of this stage of trying to put together a translational piece from their passions to actions. So I'm going to give you another 2 minutes, and then we're going to finish up. Go ahead and see what you can make sense of what you've just done. So finishing up, or just taking a pause for a second, and let me just cover my last slide, and then you can go back to it and finish whatever you were writing. I mostly just wanted to let you know about how else I can help you. As your academic research coach, my role here is really to help you take these initial ideas and help them work into a plan. So if you are interested in getting together with me, I'll be happy to meet with you. I meet with anyone who's got a good idea and they want to bring it forward. And you just reach out to me and I'll send you one of my intake forms. And it has these questions on it that that help me figure out what kind of help you're looking for, but are also useful in helping you get your ideas together about what you know so far. So I'll ask you for a working title just so that I kind of know what kind of project you're interested in, what I can do to help, what are you asking me for. I'll ask you a little bit about your own experience so that I can tailor my recommendations to kind of where you are in the learning curve, from very novice to very experienced. I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about your question, your project, what's at stake, and also something about your time. So many of you are doing this after your clinical time. So how much time do you have to devote to a project, or how much of a timeline are you looking forward to getting something done? If you know anything about the study design or what you're thinking, like a survey, or you want to do pull some clinical records and do some kind of retrospective analysis with clinical data, all of those are fair game. If you want to do those things, where will you get those data? Do you know how to analyze them? If you don't, that's a big part of what I'm here for. And then just ultimately, what do you hope to produce from this next investment of time to produce some scholarship? The sooner you talk to me, the better. If you come to me with a final data set, there's not much I can do to help you make it better besides just tell you what you've got. But if you come to me early at this stage after the brainstorming, is a spectacular time to reach out, because then I can really just help you flesh out your ideas into a really solid plan. So thanks very much. I hope this was a useful exercise to you. Please know that you should use it again and again. These speed writes have been very helpful for me when I either have too many ideas and I can't find my way forward, or I just feel a little bit stuck. Once I get my generative idea machine going, the rest of it just starts to follow and take over. So I highly recommend that you practice this whenever you want to do some brainstorming. Thanks very much, and I do hope to see you sometime soon.